In this session, we're going to look at LCT and community building. Members of the LCT community from around the world have given their views on what they like about LCT, what it's like to be part of the community, and what they use LCT for.
What I love about LCT as an approach to research is that each concept allows for a different way of seeing a phenomenon. I really appreciate that LCT is about deconstructing binaries and allowing us to get out of traps that insist on either or dichotomies.
And with the LCT, I can analyze data in a concrete way.
Being an engineer and a very visual person, I love the fact that with LCT, I can represent my data, data analysis graphically, and as well as being able to put together a beautiful translation device that speaks between the data and the theory.
What I like about LCT as a framework is when I introduce it to colleagues or students, they can use it straight away. So just enough theory to answer the problem that you have to solve at that particular moment in time.
As a theory, LCT is brilliant about helping researchers and thinkers and scholars connect the reality of a situation with theoretical ideas and neither dilute or water down the theoretical ideas or present a picture of reality that is only fitting that theory. I think the ability of LCT to move between concrete reality and theory is just extremely exceptional.
I love LCT because it frees us from binaries. And instead of just having it's this way or it's that way, we have the freedom to say it's a nuanced picture that we're looking at here. And in music, that's wonderful because there's this tussle between is it what you know or who you are? And with LCT, we can say, well, it's actually both.
What I like about LCT, it allows you to see things that otherwise are hidden. In my field, English language teaching, I could see other types of knowledge beyond the belief that all things happen because of language acquisition.
What I like about LCT as a framework, that you can analyze almost anything through the various dimensions, and they allow you to expose the rules of the game.
The framework itself facilitates discussion across topics, cultures, and also over time.
What I like about LCT as a framework is that I cannot possibly imagine anyone actually teaching without it. Once you see things, you can't unsee them. And every single LCT dimension helps you see these things.
What I like about LCT is the explanatory power of the tools and its commitment to addressing real problems and the emphasis on enabling access and success in socially just ways.
What I like about LCT is that I can make the theory my own.
Its different dimensions enable me to analyze literally anything from student writing and critical thinking to extremist propaganda or disinformation.
I like the plots. I love the fact you've got a plane and I can kind of pinpoint where things end up.
I encountered LCT as a new academic and we were discussing how to design our lessons, and the concept of or the dimension of semantics and the semantic waves really hooked me.
I encountered LCT through a postgraduate diploma in higher education. I actually attended a talk by one Carl Mayton. I didn't know who he was at the time, but bottom line is I really was intrigued by the dimension of semantics, which I then used later on to actually explore shifts in one's gaze towards education.
I discovered LCT when I attended Carl's PhD masterclass at the University of Sydney while I was doing my PhD. And the thing that really grabbed me was when he drew a really ugly Cartesian plane on the whiteboard and explained specialization. And I remember being on the edge of my seat and thinking, this is something really exciting and I want to know more.
I encountered LCT via my supervisor who introduced it to me during my master's. And I realized that LCT was for me when I saw the power that developing a translation device gave me in bridging the gap between my substantive theory and the data that I'd collected.
I stumbled upon it and I stick to it because LCT helped me understand other theories most importantly, Vygotsky's theory of how students develop and make meaning of concepts. So that's why I joined the force.
I discovered LCT through Basil Bernstein. I was reading as much as I could about Bernstein, and I suppose through searching for papers I found that led me into LCT. And then I'm a personal friend of Karen Ellery in town, and she said, oh, but there's a group at Rhodes that has got a reading group with LCT. And I was in, and I found my tribe and my community. And in particular, it was the specialization that got me into the theory, but since then I've used it for other things as well.
So I got introduced to LCT by my supervisor, Dr. Chuma, and then after reading the work of Kristen Wilmot, I realized that it works so well with critical realism, and then I decided to use it.
I first heard about LCT when I was a researcher on a national project on teacher education. We had been analysing the knowledge in teacher education curricula, but there was something missing. Somebody around the table said, I believe that there's a book called Knowledge and Knowers by Mayton. And I was like, that's what we're missing here. We're focusing on the knowledge. We're not looking at how knowers develop during pre-service teacher education.
And I discovered LCT thanks to a colleague back in the university in Chile where I work in. It's very clear and it's very structured, but also allows you to do analysis on almost anything.
I first learned about LCT in my PhD program. That's also an anecdote from Carl, because he said that he made a visit to Mendoza in Argentina. My supervisor, she heard Carl's work and theory. She started with our group of PhDs and she said, hey, I have a reading for you. I hope you enjoy it. And from that reading on, we understood research in a different way. Now I can say that LCT Mexico came out of that trip to Mendoza, Argentina.
I knew about LCT for the first time at my period of master's degree. Someone said Mayton talks about the values and knowledge and how to see codes in practice, in every practice. And I started to search online what it was about. And I found LCT. I started to wonder if this theory could be an answer for my questions in research.
Semantics was an eye-opener. It was a natural tool for engineering, since we had this perennial problem of how do we bridge theory and practice. So Carl then went ahead and supervised my PhD and was so generous with his time and his insights.
About a decade ago, I was doing my Masters of Applied Linguistics at Sydney University, and I was lucky to participate in, I think, Carl's first lecture series at the university, and it just changed my world.
So I first learned about LCT thanks to my colleague, Angelica Martinez. We were doing our masters together, and she was very excited about this theory. And at first, I didn't understand that first, because it sounded also so very abstract. At the beginning, I say, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I am intrigued.
Okay, so I first heard about LCT when I attended an assessment conference, and I just sat there and literally just thought, this is what I've been looking for. And I was so curious, it just blew me away.
Because at the pub we used to go to after the Friday seminars, if I remember correctly, it was called the Royal, and it's right next to Sydney University. There were other people who already worked with LCT, and I was just listening to their conversations, and I thought to myself, wow, this sounds really awesome, and it's definitely something I should learn.
LCT has had a huge impact on me. My journey through my master's in education proved to be quite transformative, especially coming from an engineering background. I saw the world with new eyes, kind of like being unplugged from the matrix in a way.
LCT has changed the way I view the world because it has given me tools to think about problems that arise in my life as a teacher, in my life as a parent, in my life as just a human being, how to look at those in ways that move past simple binaries of right and wrong, good and bad. They've allowed me to think about how code clashes could be at the root of disagreements.
For me, LCT have helped, especially with the semantic wave. It helps me to think about how I explain concepts to students.
LCT, both semantics and specialization, has really helped to refine the spaces between what used to be seen as binaries. I mean, using these dimensions, you can now literally plot a journey from abstract to concrete, or fixed to open approaches to something, or from novice to expert.
LCT has changed the way I look at things, because now I look at organizing principles.
I think that LCT is a powerful way to understand data insofar as my research goes, but it's also a useful way to understand the social world more generally. For instance, many current topical issues I now understand not as, situations of people being wrong or right, but actually I understand conflict or failure as the product of, for example, code clashes.
It really helps to move away from either or black and white thinking. I now only see clines and quadrants, both and, or neither nor for that matter. And as we like to say in LCT, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
I use LCT every single day. I'm somewhat of a novice carpenter. And every time I find myself getting lost in this trial and error kind of doctrinal procedures of something, I take a step back and I go, Corin, you need to strengthen the ontic relations. Hang on a moment. What's the phenomenon you're addressing? What's the principle here? And I literally see myself navigating, code shifting around the epistemic plane just to get the piece of furniture right that I'm working on.
LCT has definitely changed my way of thinking. The notions of the arena of struggle and fields of practice and making explicit the rules of the game really resonate with me. LCT has really helped me understand the practices I engage in, the struggles I face, and how I might better recontextualize knowledge to change and improve my practice.
Everything I see now, I just automatically code. I see an assessment and I think, oh, that's really knowery. I have this lens over my face that almost acts as the legitimation device, just kind of seeing things in different ways.
It's international and diverse. And it's always so active. Everybody seems to be doing so much amazing, exciting research in different parts of the world, and there's so many connections.
To me, LCT as a community is made up of my kind of people who are here to support, to cheer for you, to help you, to be critical friends, and to see you succeed.
To me, LCT as a community means being part of a group of like-minded, supportive people.
I think to me, LCT is a place where you can learn from your mistakes. We are learning together, critically looking at what we have done before, but we're analyzing it with a conceptual framework that is really helping us forge our way forward.
To me, LCT is a very welcoming community, and the excitement is very contagious as soon as we get talking, and it encourages everybody to share their thoughts, which I definitely appreciate.
To me, LCT as a community has proven to be extremely supportive. Pretty much a wonderful bunch of people from diverse backgrounds coming together, solving very, very interesting problems.
My favorite thing about the community of LCT, a very practical-minded community that's open to new ideas and incredibly supportive in ways that I've never seen in any other academic community.
To me, LCT as a community is a wonderful opportunity for international networking.
It's such a joy to be able to talk a common language. Now, the Knowledge Building Centre in Sydney has gone to great lengths to create an open, accessible platform and so many opportunities to engage with the concepts, engage with each other, share our research and practices.
What I like about the LCT community is how supportive, engaged, and driven it is as a community. The online engagement I've had with LCT NA, LCT UK, LCT at WITS from around the world. I've developed friendships with scholars from around the world, and they're inspiring and they are engaging.
The LCT community is lively, fun, generous, and professional. Whenever I have had the chance to meet to people or talked or have a question, there is always someone willing to help.
To stay being human in academic fields, because Mexicans are way too formal in some fields, and this community forces to be relaxed and to share with happiness.
And what I like about the LCT community is that it's very diverse, both in terms of geography and also in terms of the things that they do.
So I can attend, for example, the round table, and the topic might be completely unrelated to my research, but because of that shared language of LCT, I very often gain something quite profound in terms of understanding my own topic.
Even though we are academic misfits, we are fun academic misfits.
I just love the support, just how knowledgeable people are.
Well, it's very supportive. I like that it's interdisciplinary rather than tribal. It's collaborative rather than competitive. There are so many opportunities to get involved and get support. There are regional LCT groups all over the world, the email forum, roundtables, social media, so you'll never feel alone and isolated if you're part of the LCT community.
I don't think I can actually watch a movie or read a book without spotting some form of LCT concept creeping in and finding myself analyzing a book or a movie in LCT terms. It's quite annoying sometimes, but cool.
How LCT has proven helpful for me, as it also became a language to use within a family and parenting, where you can communicate with your husband in LCT language to make sure your child doesn't understand what's being said. You need to get in touch with your Nowari side.
I just remember sitting in a lecture where Carl drew a Cartesian plane and he was trying to explain how you use that for specialization. But he also drew an actual plane next to it taking off and then sort of crossed it out and told us not that kind of plane, another kind of plane.
Shortly after our student protests about fees, we included autonomy tours in one of our courses. Of course, our students wanted to know whether they'd get travelling allowances for the autonomy tours that they planned in their lessons.
One of my favorite things about LCT is that once you've learned some parts of the theory, you see them everywhere. It's a little bit like seeing the Matrix. The world just becomes a series of codes that you see all over the place. You could get into some very interesting conversations with people about what seem like very mundane or everyday events and phenomena and talk about them in very cool and sophisticated ways using LCT.
LCT3 happened at a really pivotal time of my life. And when I said to Lee, I don't think I can do this conference, she said, just come and be filled. That kickstarted my final haul to finishing my PhD. It really helped to rebuild my confidence in myself, and everybody was so supportive, and I believed in myself again.
LCT has had a significant impact on my career, particularly in looking at how a theory sort of begins and develops over time. And I think that's a really exciting journey to be on. Seeing the theory develop over time is just something incredibly exciting, because for so many of us, theories are things that we encounter after everything has been worked out. But being able to see the process in action is a really exciting thing to be a part of.
A really special experience for me was that at the height of the student protests in South Africa in 2016, I ran these monthly workshops with a group of academics who never missed the opportunity to attend. And I had the feeling that LCT had helped them to really understand their student contexts, to understand what these protests were about. And this understanding was because they were working with these really, really powerful tools. And our being together, unpacking what was really happening, helped them develop a sense of belonging to a broader community of practice.
A really special experience for me was being at LCT3 and staying at the Sunnyside Park Hotel with an international contingent of people, of LCTers from around the world. And on top of the amazing conference, just having the opportunity to spend time together around the fireplace, enjoying food and drink and preparing for talks and just chatting about a whole wide range of things. It was something really, really special.
I remember funny, but also a lovely moment in our presentation as Mexicans in LCT Roundtable International. I was absolutely nervous about the language, and I started to talk faster. And Mayton stopped me, and he said, relax, stay calm, you are okay, we are understanding, talk slowly to understand you, because it's exciting and it's an interesting way of thinking, and we want to understand you.
But it was a very emotive moment where I presented at the Chilean Constitutional Convention. I presented some of the work I've been doing, analyzing how the previous constitution was written under a dictatorship. And the convention was very pleased to see someone talking about the rules of the game beyond the law in the context of making a constitution. And that's all LCT, you know, talking about constellations of ideas, about organizing principles, and especially so about the social justice of exposing how things work out so that everyone can make better use of that.
Whenever I show students the semantic wave, I can literally hear the penny drop. And this doesn't only happen in class. At conferences or when I teach a workshop, teachers or academics come up to me and say, wow, I can go and start using this in my own class immediately, like right now. And this happens every single time. It's that powerful.
I use LCT to explore values in disciplines such as nursing, social work, and also in teaching academic literacy.
I use LCT to understand the field of academic staff development for blended learning design.
I've used LCT to explore shifts in academic identity.
I use LCT to study organizational change in teacher education.
So I'm using LCT to try and understand what academic experiences, their perception and usage of e-learning in Ghana has been.
I use LCT to explore African music and curriculum.
I'm using LCT to understand course design in distance education.
I use LCT to look at content and language integrated learning.
I'm using LCT to look at cumulative knowledge building within the accounting diploma.
I use LCT to investigate what it means to be inclusive in the higher education sector.
I use LCT to analyze how teachers speak about their practice.
I use LCT to make sense of threshold concepts in accounting.
I use LCT to investigate academic agency in assessment practice.
I use English for academic purposes.
I use LCT to make the rules of the game in science education more explicit.
I use LCT for analysing and improving practices within the field of English for academic purposes.
Engineering education in staff development, and we use LCT for everything.
I use LCT to help Mexican prisoners in jail to back home.
I use LCT to analyze how the Chilean Constitution of 1980 was constructed under dictatorship.
I use LCT in my critical discourse analysis of the Me Too movement in Mexico and sexual harassment movement.
Most recently, I've used axiological constellations and clusters to study white supremacist environmentalism. And in the field of information warfare, study Russian disinformation campaigns on Twitter.